So now that the transformers have been rewound and the power chassis has been serviced and put back together, now for those that are asking this, or those that have commented, this isn't a cosmetic restoration on this amplifier. He wants to keep the patina and all of the gnarliness with it, but he wants an electrical restoration. So that's what we're doing. So that's why, you know, the amplifier is retaining its current aesthetic look, but we are trying to get this thing working and playing for him. So as you can see, it's not your typical chassis or amplifier design. There's wires going everywhere, there's components connected directly to some places but not to others, and the difficulty with this is there is no layout diagram to follow. All you've got is the schematic. So if you're going to take on a job like this, you have to understand schematics, how they're drawn, what the conventions are, the way things are done, etc, 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 right? For example, you can see we've got components that on the schematic at least appear to be connected quite close to each other, but in the chassis itself there might be a long wire run between that component and where it actually ends up connecting to. Okay, for example, this control up here, which is the, I don't know, I can't even see, it's got this long wire run all the way down to this valve socket here, but on the diagram it might only appear to be quite a short run. Do you see? Does that make sense? So without a layout diagram and without a factory service manual, it becomes very difficult, and so you have to be super careful. Now if you've come from the world of servicing radios, TVs, radiograms, that sort of thing, this style of chassis build is not daunting whatsoever. This is all part of the course, it's what you deal with every day, it's not a problem. But if you live in the guitar amp world and you've only ever worked on Fenders and Marshalls, you know, and this is going to seem absolutely crazy, and I get that, but it's all it takes is a little bit of thinking, a little bit of planning, a little bit of preparation, and quite often once you stare at it long enough, you quickly work out what's going on and why. Okay, so now we all have smartphones now, we've all got cameras, and so what I suggest everyone does, or what I suggest you do whenever you're working on an amplifier like this, is take detailed photographs. And I don't just mean take a photograph of that valve socket, for example here, I mean take a photograph of that valve socket from multiple angles, from multiple points of view, because quite often there will be a component under a wire, etc, etc, and it might be difficult further down the line to see exactly what's going on where and why. So I've taken probably or easily 60 pictures of just this chassis on its own, just trying to make sure that once I start working on it, I know exactly where everything goes. The other thing with this is you work on a one component rule, and this is my top tip for people who want to get into more complex chassis like this, is that you only ever replace one component at a time. All right, so for example, this white capacitor here, if it needs replacing, which it probably will, I'll desolder at one end, I'll desolder at the other, I'll do the full replacement before I even think about looking at another component. Okay, and then I'll do the same for the next capacitor or resistor, and I'm only focused on one component at a time, never more than that. The only time that might be that you might have to break that rule is where you've got both a resistor and a capacitor, or two resistors or two capacitors in parallel, and therefore you've treated it as a sub-assembly of one unit. But the rule still applies. You focus on that particular job and nothing else. What you definitely don't want to do is unsolder something else, oh, I need to do that for, and then you come back and you go, well, where did that go? And I haven't got a layout diagram and my photos aren't clear. So the easy way to do it, and the most foolproof way that you can do, is simply one component at a time. All right. So this is a complex old beast. You've got 2 channels, okay, each with 3 inputs. We've got different tone stacks going on. We've got a tremolo circuit. We've got the frequency unit and this tuner unit as well. Sorry, we've got this brilliance control that sits in here that's on a switch. And then we've got a separate page for the output stage of the amplifier. Now, the reason I've done this is because this is in a separate chassis, right? But we still need to work things out, follow the process. But, so where do you start? Where do you start with this? Well, my rule is to always start with the power supply, all right? So I know in my power chassis, I've done these components. They're all back together. And you can see this tells me this goes to B+, B+1, B+2, B+3. So if I come back to this schematic, here it is, it comes in here. So now I'm going to start going through and checking all of the components on the B+ rail for both parts. Start with those. So that'll be anode or plate resistors, droppers, things like that. Work my way through. Then I like to do cathodes. So I'll start checking all the cathode resistors and bypass caps and doing those all the way through. Tick them off as I go. If you've got a highlighter pen, it's often worth doing that. Then I like to start doing what I call the signal path. Okay, so take for this channel, for example, I'll check all of the inputs, make sure everything's connected where it should be according to the diagram. If I find something different, I'll make a note. And then I follow essentially where the signal would follow and go through each component in order like that. Okay, so that's the way I tend to do things, and that's what I'm going to do on this. Now, it does take a long time. This is going to be extremely labor intensive, not just because of the build style, but because of the actual job that we're doing, which is not just a resurrection but a restoration as well. We're trying to get this thing nice. So I've got to go in, identify where everything is, work my way through, do things as I do. I've got to check everything, make sure, and if I find any issues as I go, I've got to fix those. I've got to keep detailed logs of what I'm doing and where I get up to, because if my phone rings or a customer walks in the door or my computer starts pinging loads of emails I've got to get sorted, or whatever it is, and you lose place of where you are, you could easily break your one component rule and go, oh, I'm onto this bit now, when you actually haven't finished a bit over here. So that's essentially where I'm going to go. The other thing I've got to do on this chassis, of course, is, we've done a 240 volt conversion, so the mains leader's got to go. I'm going to do that last. So this US cable is going to remain connected to the chassis. And then once I've done all the other work inside and I'm happy with it, then I'm going to replace the mains cable. The other one is the chassis interconnect cable that connects the top chassis to the power chassis. Again, that's probably going to be my second to last job in just confirming all the connections and going on. So, yeah, got a lot to do. Got a lot of fiddly bits to get to. There are capacitors down, hidden behind other components, that are going to be a nightmare to get to. Hopefully you can see. So, for example, there's a capacitor here that you can see, but there's one hidden behind it. So we need to be really careful about how we do that and access that without breaking our one component rule. All right? Very complex. So this is where we are with it. I've been rambling for 10 minutes now. I would estimate that I'm going to spend probably 2 hours on this morning, and it's probably going to look like I haven't made much progress at all, but it's all about learning and understanding and figuring stuff out, and working out how to get to stuff and why. But yeah, this is a real tech job, right? This is a proper, get your head around it, get stuck in. This isn't, an F&T recap on a Hot Rod Deluxe, right? This is proper amp work. So, yeah, take your time. Don't be too daunted by it. One component at a time, as I said. Make lists of what you're doing and why. I'm going to go through and tick off every time I've replaced a component. Make a plan of attack. But yeah, as I said, I'm going to start with the power supply. That's usually the best way. That's the way I like to do it. And then we'll go from there.